I think we're going to be able to go live to both LinkedIn and YouTube today.
Oh, interesting.
So there we go. Oh, look at that. Ooh, we're live. It shows that we're live on YouTube.
Oh,
Hey, go check
wow.
YouTube. Go see if we're live. It says we're live.
Uh,
Hey,
hey,
hey.
look at that. Very cool. Okay.
Are we
Well,
live? Did you
we,
check?
it does, I do see a live thing. I mean, I can click into it. Yep.
Woohoo! You should see us. Look at that.
Nice. All right. Well, hi
All
LinkedIn,
right.
hi YouTube.
Well, I'm not. I haven't actually gotten over to LinkedIn, so I should be
Oh,
fine.
now
I
you're
was.
making
I
a
was going.
fool
It's
out of
just.
me.
It's silly. Yes. So always silly. So let's see. So where the heck is the live thing on LinkedIn again? I always forget where the live thing is on LinkedIn, and they make me go to it, and then
I don't know.
yeah. Anyways, so those who are watching, which is no one right now on YouTube, which is cool, and Avi just disappeared again because his microphone probably went off.
What the hell? Yeah. I need to get a new microphone. It's bad. It seems like it's still on. I don't know what the deal is. Hold on. I'm gonna hop out and hop back in.
Hop out, hop back in. Hop out and hop back in. And let's see. So, US West. And do, do, do. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Hello. All right, welcome back.
Thank you.
So, not that we'll get a ton of people to visit us live because this is not something that we generally do very often, but you know, it is what it is.
It's
So,
very topical and timely that we are
yes, it is,
talking about
isn't it?
something right as it's happening.
Right as
Um,
it's happening. That's right.
yeah, do you want to kick us off and
Yeah. So hold
introduce?
on. What we're gonna do is we're gonna stop and restart so we can see if we can get on LinkedIn here.
Okay.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom, boom, boom. And let's see. It says now. There you are. All right. So Avi wave. Hello.
Hello.
We should be back live on YouTube as well as live on LinkedIn now. So, whoa, wow, this is a Thursday night, right? So
Yeah, quite a day.
here we are sitting around here, and everything's blowing up on SVB, so Silicon Valley Bank, and as we have done the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the tech apocalypse. We did some discussions on layoffs a couple weeks ago. Last week we talked about not only more layoffs but a ton of other news in the open source space. And as we were sitting here and as I was eating dinner, I was getting my phone blowed up with all kinds of SVB stuff. And so I'm like, Avi, maybe we should talk to some folks and go into the tech apocalypse side of things, right? Um, why not? Why not?
Why not indeed? It's
So for those
happening
who
now.
aren't aware, there is a lot of discussion on a bank run, right? Right now. So it sounds weird, but there's a lot of discussion on the bank run right now. And is it legit or is it not? I don't know. But the reason is, Silicon Valley Bank evidently sold some assets at a big loss. And so they tried to
I
raise some
mean,
money.
big relative to something, but for them, I don't know how big of a loss that really is. But yeah, they did sell. They did sell some mortgage-backed securities at a loss. Um, and then went and tried to raise more debt raise more debt and sell equity. Um, but I guess their stock went down a lot overnight as a
Oh,
result
a
of some of this
massive
stuff.
amount, right? So
Right. And so I think,
60%.
and so even those, stock sales also much, very impacted by that by this kind of overnight activity. Um, Ultimately, from what I can tell, everything would be fine if people were not panicking about it.
Well, there's a lot of investors who are, and I've heard this. Like I heard this tonight. I checked out CNBC, and they were like, "Oh, we talked to these VCs, and they've recommended that all their founders pull them out."
Yeah, because they're
And,
the ones panicking. They're the ones causing this
yeah,
problem. Like this is the VCs who are propagating this information are the culprits of what is happening right now. Like, did SVB, trade something at a loss? Yep. Like, does that happen all the time? Also, yes.
yes. Well, but I mean, I think that there was also the crypto company that went under or is winding down information or their stuff. What is it, Silverstein? Um,
Maybe you're I'm not up to date on that part.
yeah, Silvergate. So basically, it's like back to back news, right? So Silvergate is a crypto focused bank. Okay, so it's done some investing and some other things, and so number one, Silicon Valley sold like at a loss their assets. Okay, but then Silvergate announced we're shutting down, we're liquidating, which that's actually a fairly big thing in the crypto side. I mean, but crypto's been like hit
Yeah.
hard, but
Yeah.
they announced that. Then immediately, like after that, SVB came along and
Mm,
was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you know, we're now going to try and raise money because we can't, we need some liquidity." And it just kind of all went sideways and pear shaped really quick, right?
yeah.
That's what it sounds like, right?
Yeah, it does sound like that, but I think really like the kind of the bottom line of this is that there were things happening that were not obviously not ideal for SVB, but everything like really the real thing that has gone sideways is that people are panicking over it and spreading information that causes more panic. And so my obviously keep in mind that we are not financial experts on this by
We are
any
not
stretch,
financial experts.
but everything here would be fine if people just were not panicking over it. And my recommendation, which you should maybe take with a huge grain of salt, is that you should not panic because SVB is a huge bank. I think what we were talking about before we went live is that like half of Silicon Valley, half of like the venture capital world is banking with SVB. This is a very big organization. There's a lot here, and one sale of stock at a loss is not turning that whole thing upside down. Also, SVB was very like they had full collateralization of all the deposits. Like this is not the crypto world here that we're talking about where things are
Well, yeah, and I mean,
over-leveraged
like right now,
over-leveraged.
50% of all VC funds is what I heard. Like, all the money coming in for
Yeah,
VC is coming from this, right? So it's a lot.
it is a lot. That's more of a reason to be confident in it rather than to be panicking about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, but when you have big time investors like Peter Thiel come out and say like, pull your money, it just leads to it.
It totally does. And like, a bank run driven by illogical hysteria is still a bank run. So like there is that, I think there is that piece of it. But I think that ultimately this is going to be something that blows over, in my opinion. Like, yeah, I think it's a great time to buy SVB stock.
That is not financial advice that I would.
Not financial
giving.
advice.
Okay.
Yeah, don't listen to me. No one listened to me. It's
like,
fine.
I mean, honestly, like if you listen to the talking heads, right? So again, like, I was reading some articles about this, coming onto this, and I was also um, checking out the news, and it's like there's a lot of people are like, yeah, we don't know if SVB is going to be around in 2 days. And so I guess if you could get in really low, there is that. But um, again, it's something that I think it's another kick to the gut to a lot of the startups in the tech space right now. I mean, and I think that
Is it?
as we,
Is
yeah, but
it?
as we talk,
Has any startup actually been impacted by this yet?
not yet,
Like
but I think,
like like short of people panicking and the effects that that causes.
but I mean, we have seen the layoffs continue, right? So we were just talking today. We've
Yeah.
noticed, like, on LinkedIn, looking at LinkedIn, for instance, there are people that I know that are getting laid off, and they're not being announced, right? So other than like, oh, I'm now looking, I was affected by layoff, and you're like, I didn't know that
Yeah.
company laid off people. And the question really comes in, if we're still running through these layoffs and the VC market has already tightened, will this cause a even further tightening of that belt? And if your company was really dependent on that next round, is this going to have a cascading impact?
Yeah. I personally, I don't really see how this is actually going to impact anything in the long run. Like, I think, yeah, if SVB were to like disappear in 2 days, that would have a big impact. But I just don't see how that would happen here. Like, it's got to take a lot of craziness on like the public's part to cause that. And I feel like even the amount that we've seen today is not that level.
Because I mean, I know that, yeah, yeah. So I've been through a couple financial crises, like, and seen how fast stuff can spiral. Let's hope it
Yeah,
doesn't
things
do
can.
that, right? Like,
Yeah, things can
I
definitely spiral, and so I think that's why my message here is like everyone should just calm down. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's okay.
there's a lot of jitteriness right now, right? Is that the right
Definitely,
word?
definitely. And
There's a lot
like
of
seeing stock drop off that much is concerning for sure. Like definitely a cause for concern over it. But like to say, oh, well, we need to move all of our money out of this very established bank seems kind of crazy to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, it does. And it's not something that I would recommend either, obviously, right? It's not
Yeah.
something that I would say like, oh my God, let's do that. But I think that once it starts, it's going to be hard to stop, right? Like, so if legitimately, like, again, a quote that was just on, like, on a major news station was, that investor had 15 calls, okay, from founders, and he told all 15 to remove their money tomorrow,
Yeah, that's the problem. Like that is
right?
the problem. I feel
And
like
then
is that kind of thing.
I saw an investor we both know on LinkedIn post, like, oh, we don't recommend you switch banks, but you should potentially move your money um, to something, any cash that you have,
Safer. Yeah, yeah,
to
like in
something much
cash.
safer.
Which
Like
honestly, if you're a
security.
startup, you
Yeah.
probably should have already had your money in something pretty liquid. Like as a startup, you don't have the amount of funds where you need to be like, I don't know, massively concerned with your yield on your idle cash. Because
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah. I mean, there's two schools of thought, right? I mean, obviously, it's too late to potentially move stuff if you haven't already. Like, in the midst of whatever tomorrow brings, and I know some people have said by 11 o'clock you should do this, because if you don't do it by 11, and I'm like, why 11? What is the magic around 11? But
I don't know.
whatever. Who knows? Um, but it is going to be something that's going to be really interesting to see, and it has caused Twitter to blow up quite a bit, which, that's not surprising. A lot of times Twitter blows up for reasons that are even worse than that, right? So there is that.
Yeah. I think maybe what would be good to talk about is just kind of what we think actually like happened here from what we understand of like kind of the sequence of events to maybe contextualize the stuff a little bit further.
Sure, go for it.
And so
Go,
like
feel
from,
free to
and
start.
yeah, and maybe, like feel free to correct anything that you think I'm saying that's not accurate here. But from what I understand is that um, SVB had a lot of deposits that they were not able to loan out quickly enough to make the amount of money that they were wanting to make on all the deposits they have. So from what I'm reading here, it seems like they went from about 61 billion in deposits to 189 billion over the course of 2 years, and they're not able to loan out the money fast enough, and so they bought a bunch of mortgage-backed securities over a 10-year period for how long they matured. Then interest rates skyrocket. And so now they have these 10-year securities that are locked up, making less money than what they would have made if they were just in bonds.
Yeah, because back when they bought them, the rates were so insanely low.
Super low.
Like if you got like 2% or 1.5%, it was like, my God, that's great. And now,
right, exactly.
It's like 8,
it's like, oh, you should be getting 4 or 5, whatever it is. And so they're like, oh, well, shit, like we should just sell it, take a loss, and reinvest it, and then we're making more money. And so people say, oh, you sold this thing for a huge loss. That worries me. And then people start selling, and then overnight you see the stock dip.
Well, so I think I also saw there was some other concerns that were impacted there as well. So, for instance, we saw that money coming in, the deposits weren't keeping up, right? So whatever investment, so new deposits weren't coming in to replace.
Yeah, I think the gap in my knowledge is what caused them to want to sell off more securities and raise more debt, like sell off more equity and raise more debt.
Well, I think they had to, because so some of the investments, we probably have to dig into this, but I think, from what I understand, and I understand very little because I've just been reading for like an hour on this, less than an hour, but it sounded like what was going on was they were short on cash. And so a lot of times when, banks are getting more money and they take the deposits, they reinvest them, then,
Yep.
they could pay back the yields and stuff, to the individual investors and things. But they couldn't do that because the new money coming in, new startups weren't getting capital. So there weren't deposits in the bank. There weren't that influx of cash that was coming from the investor community the previous few years. So they were coming up short in some areas. I don't know what exactly they were. That's what I heard.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me in
Yeah,
comments,
please let
chat,
us know
whatever.
if we're missing any information
But
there. But based on that,
but
that's
happened.
yeah.
Okay, but that happened at the same time. Like I said, Silvergate also announced that they were going to go liquid, and then the announcement on why they were raising capital, I guess, like the press release was just a dumpster fire. Is the words that I've seen used. It was just like meandering, and it didn't really clarify much. And so as that was going on, then things just kind of started to escalate from there. And that's when investors started to say, like, wow, there's some horrible things. And right now the stock continues to go down. Like and just since it closed, it's down it's down almost 30% more.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where just the kind of panic comes in. Yeah, I think based on what we know here, this seems like it. I still feel very strongly that this would have been totally fine if people were more level-headed about what was happening. Like,
I don't think anybody's level-headed right now. I think that there's, especially in tech, this is where it's interesting, because when you look at like the economic indicators for jobs reports and stuff, it's like, oh, it's good, except in tech.
right, yeah,
right. And I think that there's a lot of concern there, and so it's going to be interesting to see if this is something more. And I mean, I think right now they're still talking about it. It's all that dominates. I got the TV on over here.
Yeah.
Yes, I still watch TV as well as stream stuff. Yes.
I'm sure there have been tactical mistakes that have been made here to kind of lead to some of these things. But I think too, since this is a open source themed stream / podcast at the end of the day, I think the way that I would tie it back to that is that I don't know, open source work and open source efforts, communities, etc., are very, I think, have a very for the greater good mentality about all the work that we do. And so I think it's really important for us to keep those ideas in mind in other places beyond just building software. And in that case, I think one of those things here is the importance of not like spreading panic and being, just looking at the situation very objectively and realizing that we do have a role to play in preventing things like this from happening. And that's not to panic when things happen. That may be a little scary, even if they are a little scary, which this one I think is a little questionable whether how scary it actually was.
I guess
However,
tomorrow we'll really know, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
as we hit the weekend, we'll see a little bit more. But I mean, like, the demand for open source isn't going to slow down, right? And
no. Open source is here to stay. It just, I think, there's obviously bumps and turbulence along the way, and this is kind of what that is, I think, is some of those bumps and some of that turbulence.
So let's switch gears really quick. And I know we wanted to keep this a little shorter just because this is a more off the cuff, but because we didn't do a tech apocalypse episode, we should talk about the other things that are going on in the open source space. So
what else is going on?
Let's look at the other things in the open source space, shall we? So let's see. Okay, this is my non-scientific, non-prepared thing. So Avi, can you answer this question for me?
Why so much open source software is vulnerable to hackers? Oh gosh.
Is it?
All software is vulnerable to hackers. So yeah. My answer would be because it's software.
Yeah, I think all software is vulnerable. I think it's easy to point the finger at open source because the code is open and you can see it and you can audit it, and then you can say like, oh yeah, look at these vulnerabilities, or look at what's going on there. And so it's interesting. Let's see. So it's an OSSRA report published by Synopsys. Oh, this might be the same Synopsys one we covered a week ago.
Yeah,
So
I think it's
I
think it is.
All right.
I mean, I think one way we could kind of flip the common, or whatever it is, like many eyes makes all bugs shallow, or I don't know if there's a number to that, but also many eyes makes a lot of security measures a lot more shallow. If you have a lot of people trying to hack something, I'm probably going to do it.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. The only way to secure your systems is to not allow them any network access. Zero trust. You just assume everything is vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. Let's be honest. All right. So millions of exposed credentials detected in open source repositories. Tens of millions of lines of code expose private credentials. Okay. So this is a sensationalized, I think, headline, because what this looks like it's talking about is people who committed code that had passwords embedded in the code.
Or secrets, right? Like any API keys as well are considered this. And GitHub has been pushing out new secret scanning partners. I feel like every week there's a new scanning partner that they announce. And it's just help us know what the format of your API keys look like. And that's all it is.
So this is a user issue, though. This is not necessarily a security issue. This is a user issue for being a dumbass user.
It's not even necessarily an issue, honestly. There are some services for which I don't really care if you have my API token. I just don't care.
That's true. That's true.
And I don't know I'm sure in these 10 million lines of code, there are probably some real things that really should not have been there. It's really great that GitHub is scanning for that.
Yeah.
But most of them, I don't know.
All right. So let's see. So what do we got next? We got, 89% of code bases are using outdated software.
Oh, what does outdated mean?
Yes. Oh, another Synopsys recommendation. So they go into a few other things in this one. It looks like this one might be a podcast.
That's kind of cool. Or a cool study. It's not cool that that's the case, but
anyways, so outdated open source software,
What does that? Yeah, what does outdated mean?
Well, I think it means that there's newer versions available, and so you're relying on an older version.
Oh, this is like damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Because if you shouldn't pin to the latest version of stuff and just run whatever the last thing that was pushed to the registry, right?
That's true. That's very true.
So what should people do then? Well, you should run software that is not out of date but not up to date.
Right. All right. Moving on. Let's see. Oh,
Okay.
got another ad. Oh shoot, I'm not using Brave in this one. I'm using the Chrome browser. Dang it. I have Brave open for everything else, but for whatever reason, I'm in Chrome here. I don't know why. Anyways, so companies can't stop using open source, even though open source can be more expensive than proprietary. But the time savings and the ability to free up developers to innovate are worth it. So Matt Assay here is covering the survey that we did about the value of open source.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so is it more expensive? It can be, I guess. But then, like, I guess if you're looking at total cost of ownership, then you should be counting in like the amount of time it takes to operate it. I don't know.
Yeah, I continue to just be very skeptical of any claim about which is more expensive. I don't know. It's really, yeah.
Fair enough. All right, and NASA's thirst for open source software and open science is growing.
Yes, that's cool.
Yeah, so evidently, they were covering the FOSDEM talk from Steve Crawford about open source, which if you haven't seen, it's worthwhile to check out. There is a lot of open source projects that NASA has contributed to or even started, right? Crawford estimates that over 44,000 pieces of software have been released by NASA researchers and mission. Okay, so when we talk about like open source software, one entity has generated 44,000. That's a lot.
That's like a crazy number.
Yeah, that seems unrealistically high.
That seems like, oh, NASA forked a library. Look, they just made a new piece of software.
But it's NASA. Don't pick on NASA.
No, I would never pick on NASA. NASA, we love everything that you do. I think, yeah, when Scarf sends out package notifications of like, oh, we saw a new, organization using your software. NASA seems to be the crowd favorite when it shows up.
Fair enough.
People love to know their codes in space.
That's right. All right. Well, that's all that I pulled up in the 30 seconds that I was looking. But we can take a look and skim through the news cycle on anything that's interesting and open source related.
Sure, I can maybe do like one or two more and hop off.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see any that were jumping out at me. And unfortunately, when you look for open source type stories, a lot of times you get like open source intelligence and stuff.
Yeah.
Open source software, a national security priority.
That's cool. It should be.
And open source sees growth across the board. Well, that's obvious. I don't think that's anything too controversial there. Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting into the just kind of a repeat. I thought there was another survey that came out this week as well that I didn't get into, but I wanted to look into. But I don't remember what that survey was. So something we'll have to get back to maybe in another week or so. There's that TechCrunch article that we covered last week. So I think we're just we're basically we've covered the interesting news of the week. So there you go.
Well,
but
cool.
For those who are watching, hang in there and don't panic.
Don't panic, everybody. Yeah, seriously, don't panic.
Don't panic. Even though we're talking about the tech apocalypse, and we've talked about, how I always say the investor stuff in big business can potentially hurt open source. It can also help it. But I don't think that this is the end of the end here. So keep that in mind. So, alrighty. Well, that was it. We just wanted to come hang out for a half an hour and talk because, Avi's going to get the snow apocalypse this weekend, right? Isn't that true?
Yeah, I hope I can make it back home after. I am supposed to drive back on Monday, so
yeah, you're supposed to get like feet and feet.
Yeah, I think there's going to be like 3 or 4 feet of snow here this weekend.
Damn.
So
all right, well,
it's pretty wild, but for those skiers, it's a good time if you can.
All right. Well, Avi, enjoy your weekend and whatever is going on in your travels back.
Likewise, Matt. Thanks so much, and talk.